Hi, this is Mayor David Henderson, and this is City View on brocknews.ca. And we're reporting from City Hall. It's December 12th, 2011. So what are the big issues on the deck today? Well, tonight we swear in a new councillor, Tom Blanchard. And this has clearly been one of the more highlighted issues of the city for the last couple of months. Larry Journal stepped down from City Council approximately 3 months ago, and now we're replacing Larry Journal on City Council with Tom Blanchard. And I say one of the highlighted issues because for some this has been very controversial. And let me try and capture it, I guess, in the best way. I guess one of the complaints that we've heard is that we should automatically have gone to the next runner-up in the last municipal election 1 year ago. That was Henry Noble. And remember the last municipal election we had approximately 20 people running for the 10 spots. So there was quite a few people on the deck. And Tom Blanchard didn't actually run in that election. But what we did, and this is critical, I think, and people really need to understand this. And to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in some of the reporting locally on this because it fired up the issue without giving the facts. In Ontario, when a councillor steps down from a municipal office, there are two choices open to the council. The council can run a by-election, and that is not generally done for a council member position. If a mayor stepped down, then often there is a by-election because that's the leader of council if it's early enough in the mandate. But when a councillor steps down, it's not usually done as a by-election for a number of reasons. One, because it's expensive, $20,000 to $30,000, but two, because you just had an election and people tend to not be as interested in an election going on to do it again. So generally, not done. So the alternative choice is for the elected members of council to appoint a new member. And this is traditionally what is done. And in fact, in Brockville, this is what was done the last time such an event happened. Don Longchamps passed away in office probably roughly 10 years ago. And to replace Don Longchamps as a city councillor, the process that was recommended by the province at the time, recommended by the city's bylaws or policies, and that was actually acted upon was a call was put out for interested parties who were qualified, which means that you own property or live in Brockville, to put their application in, and then City Council chose one of those members to be the councillor. And at that time, what happened is that there were actually 3 finalists that were interviewed in camera by council, and they chose one of them, Larry Journal. One of the other finalists was Tony Barnes, and I'm not sure of the third person's name. So council interviewed them, determined which one they were going to choose. When they were in the public session, they appointed that member, which was Larry Journal. Larry Journal didn't actually run in the riding or the ward where Don Longchamps vacated. So it was not a go to the runner-up decision. It was an appointment decision. And this is very common for a number of reasons. Nowhere in our political system is the runner-up automatically appointed because there's such a variance in what that might mean or what might happen. In some cases, there is no runner-up. In other cases, there's runner-ups that are widely divergent from the elected candidates. So legislation is specifically designed that it does not say the runner-up. It gives councils a great deal of leeway. Prior to 2004, it actually recommended that councils appoint, and they gave a process of asking for potential candidates and then going through a process of the elected members voting for the new appointment. And I think that's really important because some of the concerns came up and said, is this a democratic process? Well, if your choice was to automatically appoint somebody that wasn't elected, that's not overly democratic. The choice is that the elected representatives must vote on a new appointment. It's indirect, but it's very democratic. In fact, there are many situations where a second tier of voting in our democratic system makes those types of choices. We appoint people to police boards, we appoint people to health boards, we appoint people to Cataraqui Conservation Authority, we appoint people to library boards. They all make decisions. They're unelected, but they are elected by a sitting elected council. Same way as an elected council makes decisions on budgets. So, same way as the United Counties elects the warden into office, which is the highest ranking officer in the United Counties. In larger regional systems, the regional chair is usually elected by the sitting members or elected members. So what people really need to come to terms with is that there are many different forms of democracy and democratic processes, and there are different arguments for those processes at different times. And what has evolved in Ontario for the appointment system to fill a vacancy is a democratic process, and it's evolved that way based on experience over time. So our council chose not to have a by-election. We chose to go by the appointment process. Each individual councillor then has to make the choice for themselves of who they want to be in that role. If they're guided by the principle that, oh, the next runner-up by votes should be it, so be it. They can make that decision. But what each of us had to ask is who they thought should be the person in that role for the City of Brockville. And that's our role, our responsibility. Now, in the process that came forward, we actually chose to make it more open and transparent than has historically been the case, to the point where we added a process where each potential candidate, we received 9 people that put in a letter saying that they were interested and qualified in the role, and then city councillors had to nominate one of those people to be on the slate that we would then vote for. So we actually added a couple of steps in to make sure that it was very much in the public realm. And at the end of the day, we had 3 candidates receive nominations from council on the council floor. That was Henry Noble, David Cody, and Tom Blanchard. And Tom Blanchard received fully 6 of the 9 votes. 5 people had to vote for one of the candidates. That's a majority of the 9 elected members of council to be the new council member, and that's what Tom Blanchard received, was 6. So in one round of voting, he was then voted in as the next councillor. So I know that might seem a little complicated, but it's not a simple process. But it is a democratic process. It is the elected representatives of the people choosing by an election who the next councillor or the councillor replacement is. Now, many people may not agree with that. Many people do agree with that. And there was a lot of discussion as to that process. The process was considered fairly sound going into the actual voting night. So I guess that's all to say on it, is that it is a good process. The result was good. In any type of election, people are not always happy with the end if it didn't work out for them. So that's where we're at tonight. Tom Blanchard will be sworn in as a member of the Brockville City Council, and we move forward. So beyond that, and I guess I could just add a little bit more to that. This is a fairly informal process in the City View. One of the complaints that came up and that we acknowledged very early on is that Tom Blanchard is a cousin of mine. He's a relative of the mayor of Brockville. And what should be fairly clearly understood, and should have been understood by previous candidates for previous council members, is that the conflict of interest legislation in the province of Ontario is very explicit and clear. There has to be potential for monetary gain, pecuniary interest, or direct family involvement, brother, sister, mother, father, for it to be considered a conflict of interest. And categorically, Tom Blanchard, although he is a cousin, there is no potential monetary gain for me in that decision whatsoever. There is nothing there that would make that a pecuniary interest. And that's very, very clear in the legislation. And even morally beyond the legislation, it's very clear that there's no monetary gain there. So there was some concerns expressed online about whether that's a conflict of interest, and it is categorically not. So if there's ever any want by people to ask for clarification of those rules, we're very more than open to it. So that's the way it is. We move on, and we've got some big issues coming up for the City Council. Probably the biggest one is later tonight is our moving forward with an outside service delivery review. We are putting forward onto the table a motion to move forward with that process, to ask for proposals to do a service review or an operational review of the city, particularly an overview a generalized overview of kind of make comparables, ratio comparisons to other areas to see what what ratios stick out, i.e. are there any departments that stand out as far as the cost and service being provided, the manpower being provided, and then to focus in on some areas in particular, and some examples we put forward are our emergency service areas, our finance department. I think we've identified about 3 or 4 different departments to potentially target based on the overview, and we'll see what comes of this. This has been a long discussed process. 5 years ago, in fact, we said we would do an internal service review and then, based on the outcomes, discuss and potentially move forward with an outside service review, and that's where we're at now. And a long time there's been different elements in the community that have asked for this type of review. So we are almost there, and we'll see how the discussion goes tonight to see what we move forward with. So there's 2 rather complicated issues on the floor, and other than that, it's Christmas. We are about 2 weeks away from Christmas, and things are falling into place. City Council has a meeting tonight, which is the 12th of December, and that'll be the last meeting until January, although we have some other subcommittee meetings going on. But basically right now everybody's in the home stretch for the Christmas holidays, and that means a little bit of family time, a little bit of downtime, and hopefully everybody's healthy and happy over the holidays. We have no snow yet, and that's good for City Hall, but it's not so good for the kids out there playing, so we'll see how that all falls out. I think that's it, and we'll see you in January in the new year. We do have the New Year's levy on New Year's Day at 12 o'clock here at City Hall. That's a chance for you to come down and talk to the councillors and express any ideas or concerns that you have, and just a chance to connect a little bit, and we'll have a few snacks here for you when you come. But 12 o'clock on New Year's Day, that'll be us, and we'll have some representatives from the military as well as our MPP and possibly our MP as well, and we'll see you then. So this is Mayor David Henderson at Brockville City View on brocknews.ca. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.